Hello. Thank you for joining us for today's Mad Security Town Hall. We're going to be discussing a variety of things focused on the CMMC compliance publication that just happened to the Federal Registrar and questions to navigating that process and ensuring you're well prepared for compliance. Like to begin by introducing our team. So I am an account executive here at Mad Security. I help people navigate the process for determining cybersecurity services and compliances that are most appropriate for them and getting through to certification execution and ensuring their system is properly secured. Now, Cliff, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Of course, my name is Cliff Neve. I'm a vice president with Mad Security, specializing in CMMC and also maritime cybersecurity. Very glad to be here today.
All right, so here's some of the reasons that may have brought you to today's town hall. We have a lot of experts on the team, so we can answer accurately any real-time questions y'all have regarding CMMC compliance processes and getting to certification. If you do have a question as we go through this town hall, you just click the raise your hand button. We will see any notes too that you put in asking questions. So there are a few ways you can get our attention so that we can address questions as they come up. Also, I understand a lot of people have come here because the publication did just come out on October 15th. So you're probably looking to be as up to date on those cybersecurity compliance requirements. So glad to have you here. So this is just a little bit about our team, and we are lucky enough to today have Cliff Neve join us on this town hall. So Cliff Neve has been with the company since its origin nearly 15 years ago. I'll let him speak a little bit more about the company.
Sure. So we've been in business since 2010, and we've gone through several iterations as a company, but ultimately we've been tracking on NIST 800-171 from the beginning, and we've helped organizations go through the NIST 800-171 process, the DFARS process, and then into the realm of CMMC. We were one of the first registered providing or practitioner organizations in 2017. So we were right on the cusp of that. And we have since then strived to become the best defense industrial base security operations center in the world. So that's our objective, is to provide the defense industrial base with the best possible security to protect their data and their systems from any nefarious actors. And that's been our objective. So we are very laser focused on defense industrial base and CMMC, and we have been pretty much since our origin. So thanks, Kelsey.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Cliff. All right. Well, what may have gotten you to register for this town hall specifically could have been some of the call outs within this notice of publication for Federal Registrar regarding what we're gonna talk about. So initially we will go over that publication, some key points to pull out of it and be aware of. We'll discuss the impact of the finalization on contracts and bidding, whether you're a sub or a prime or you do both. And we will help with planning and processing for your certification. So a little bit of guidelines there, things to keep in mind, and how Mad Security may be able to assist in that process. So first things first, right? We all are probably hearing a lot about this CMMC compliance publication. Happened October 15th, final rule published with Federal Register. Hey, Cliff, if you want to talk a little bit about how we got here.
Sure. So, as most of you know, CMMC has been going on for quite a while, since the 2017 timeframe, and this is a huge milestone in that after all the public comment, after all the work with industry that's gone into it, that this final rule has been published. And I think that the good news is because it took a while, it shouldn't become or come as a surprise to those out there who are responsible for doing it, because DFARS was the precursor to this, and a lot of folks were having to do that anyways. But the publication itself did not have very many changes to what was originally set forth, or really, what we've been talking about from the start. Even with DFARS, there hasn't really been a lot of changes. There are some nuances that have to be understood, as far as some of the intricacies of how it's done. But for the most part, it's held to the NIST 800-171 standard. DoD made clear that that was going to be the case, and that they're going to stick with Rev 2. And so when this publication came out on Monday, there weren't a whole lot of surprises to it. It stayed pretty much true to the direction that it had been heading all along. And I guess DoD has figured out that it's time to get moving on this. So here we are.
Yeah, definitely. So this really is a priority for our national security, right? It's to ensure that we are preventing cybersecurity threats. It'll also improve supply chain security, and it's going to standardize cloud use, all in the effort to make our country more secure. A few of the key points that you'll see in that publication, which I'm sure many people are already aware of, as Cliff said, because this has been in the works for some time. Third-party assessments will be required. Up to this point, it has been self-assessment, but to assure that everybody is acting in accordance with the cybersecurity requirements, the NIST 800-171-110 control requirements under CMMC compliance. That assessment will audit that. Additionally, FedRAMP cloud compliances have come up in this publication, so you'll need to be aware of how your organization will be impacted by that, and your contract integration timeline, whether it's with existing contracts you have, renewals that are coming up, or bids that you want to place in the future, how CMMC compliance will be impacting that from here on out. So to get into greater detail of what that impact will look like now that we're at finalization, we've divided that out over whether you have existing contracts, you have renewals for those contracts coming up, and your plans for bidding on new contracts. So Cliff, could you go into detail then on these varieties and the difference for what it will look like for primes and subs who fit in each field?
Of course. And so really the contract is king when it comes to being a defense contractor. You have to do what's in the contract, and frequently you don't have to do what's not in the contract. So really what this becomes a function of is, when is this going to show up in the contracts? And so DoD has a lot of wiggle room as far as implementing DFARS and as far as implementing CMMC into their assessments early on in the process. And so what we're going to see is that for existing contracts, if there are option years, then DoD has the option of adding those as a no-cost requirement to those option year contracts. If you have contract renewals, you can expect those to be in the contract renewals. If it's processing CUI, you'll actually start to see the requirement for CMMC start to hit with some of these contract renewals. And as far as the other element of this being the prime contractors, which if you're a subcontractor, you have the additional liability or the additional obligation to meet whatever your prime contractor demands. So the government has their set of demands that will be done with their contracts to the subs, and the subcontractors will also have demands that they have to meet based upon what the prime flows down to them. And so these existing contracts, especially ones that have the DFARS clause in it already, you can expect those to be updated. And in fact, part of this planning process is for what is for DFARS to ultimately be revised by early next year, where DFARS will also add in the requirement for CMMC as part of that Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation supplement. So really the bottom line is that this phased approach is going to be fully effective in 2028, but folks are going to start seeing the impacts of that as soon as Q1 of next year, as primes and forward-leaning government organizations begin to implement it into the contracts. The other thing that we may start seeing, and we've seen in some organizations, some government organizations, is that they may start adding cybersecurity as an evaluative criteria as part of contract awards. So we've seen Defense Logistics Agency do that with a couple of contracts they have, where they actually have it as an evaluative criteria for winning. So really the bottom line is that it's upon us, and the quicker you get involved in this and the quicker you get to where you need to be, the less risk you're going to have of being able to keep the contracts you have, or be able to bid on contracts that you want to go after.
Yeah, exactly. The quicker you'll get through this process, the better off you'll be for the bidding and retaining of contracts. Exactly. So any questions on this portion? I know this can be pretty complicated. Feel free to type that in our questions field available here in the town hall. Additionally, I'm happy, me and Cliff, to take meetings for folks who are looking for greater detail on how to execute this. Of course, MAD Security, we like to assist the community. 85% of our clientele is DoD contractors, or they're contracted as a prime or a sub. So that is a huge portion of what we do, is keeping people educated and informed. The other portion of what we do is providing services to keep your environments secure and to help y'all meet these compliance requirements. So reach out anytime via phone, email. We'll provide that information after this town hall, and I'd be happy to arrange a meeting with you to discuss that further. I'm trying to get. So that really comes down to this portion, right? Planning and process for CMMC compliance certification. A few things here, very important to keep in mind. What is your assessment obligation? What is going to be the eligibility and compliance risk involved in this? And what are the flow down requirements? So this is really, a lot of this is dependent on how much impact do you have around how much handling of CUI you have as a company. If you're a prime or a sub, that'll have an impact on your flow down requirements. So let's start with assessment obligation, right? So everyone's going to be obligated to take that third-party certification assessment. How quickly that is done really is dependent on what the contract you're bidding looks like, or the contract renewal that comes up looks like, but everybody will be required to do so. That timeline, though, is dependent per contract. In terms of eligibility and compliance risk, it is going to be a requirement now to meet that 110 control fulfillment for certification. Prior to this, there were, showing evidence of your path towards certification. And while there may be certain callouts in your bids or your renewal contracts that allow for like a grace period or a rollout period for fulfillment, the CMMC compliance requirement is 110 control fulfillment for your certification. So by the time you get to audit, that is the expectation. Now there will be annual self-attestation for compliance. So every 3 years, it's third-party audit, right? Every year is that self-attestation. That will be required by an officer of your company, someone in C-suite, CEO, someone like that. That can be a lot of risk to take on if the company is unsure or unaware of any changes in their environment that haven't been properly identified in their policies and procedures and updated. Now, having a partnership with a company like us, we take on a lot of that risk for you through our services on management of your compliance. We update all of your documentation, excuse me, and we take on that risk essentially. We've taken several people through the JSVA. We have experience in this field, so again, happy to answer questions as they come up. When it comes to flow down requirements, that's essentially going to be, non-compliant subcontractors can impact. They can have an impact in this process, whether or not, CMMC compliance, the flow down of that from primes to subs is dependent on, again, your CUI handling. Now, Cliff, can you speak additionally to any of the call outs here?
Sure. Yeah. And one of the things as far as the assessment goes is that the assessment is a point in time assessment, but what DIBCAC and what the C3POs are looking for are mature processes that that are going to be proven out over these over the life cycle of handling of CUI. Hence the annual self-attestation, which is a big thing and carries liability with it if you're not maintaining it. And so, recommend that because people are constantly changing their IT infrastructure, their environment, the failing effort is to do it and then wait for 3 years and then try to do it again. You really need to maintain this as it goes, because if at any point during those 3 years you're non-compliant, your company's carrying a risk because you're certifying that you are compliant with it. What we've also found is that through the multiple joint surveillance voluntary assessments that we've done is that not only, there's 110 controls, but that one of the biggest mistakes that we see is that people look at those 110 controls and they're not looking at the NIST 800-171A, which has a total of 320 evaluative criteria or subcontrols to those 110 controls. And so folks will look at those and not go into the detail that's required. So we've seen folks try to go it alone during DIBCAC audit or during a C3PA audit, and they think that they're in a very, very good place, and as it turns out, they're not. We've seen one organization that thought they had 110 going into it, and their score was a negative 66. So that was a rough way to go. So if you think that you have it under control and you're ready for a JSV, it's really good to have a second set of eyes before you go into that audit. Take a look and make sure you're okay, because the last thing you want to do is schedule one of these, go through it with a C3PAO, fail it, and then have to get back in line again. And the line is starting to queue up already. There's a finite number of C3PAOs out there. And as you can imagine, with 88,000 or so DoD contractors that have to go through this, if there's only 60 or 70 C3PAOs, the math doesn't work out really well. And so if you have to go to the back of the line on that because you didn't meet the criteria the first time, then you're looking at a very, very, very lengthy process. Even if you were to start today, speaking to the maturity piece, you can't just get a SOC as a service and say, hey, we're meeting the SOC as a service. You have to show the maturation of that carried out for several months. So if you were to start today, it takes a while just to get those controls in place and underway, but then you also have to prove them and provide artifacts that show that that's the lifestyle you're living. And so, if you're targeting, let's say, July or August, then you better start today, because with building your strategy, implementing your strategy, assessing it, and then getting scheduled, you're already looking into the August timeframe of 2025. So, and that timeframe is not a one for one. It's going to be exponential as the 88,000 contractors start hitting this. it'll start to be more of a 2-for-1, 3-for-1, 4-for-1 every month you wait kind of exchange.
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you, Cliff. So here's a bit of a timeline built out for CMMC compliance certification, typically what you can expect, specifically what you can expect in a partnership with MAD Security. So initially understanding like your enablement and planning, so what your environment looks like, your systems, that's really the first step in this compliance process. If you have all of that detailed out, you know where your CUI is stored and how it's processed, then a gap assessment is what you're going to want to do next. It identifies the remediations necessary to fulfill those controls, and it'll give you a phased process for fulfillment of the controls that greatest impacts your score, so that you can achieve effective attainment with the lowest amount of effort but still getting to your compliance, right? We assist through that process. We do implementation of cybersecurity controls, so whether that be your SOC, EDR, vulnerability management. We have as an MSSP, a wide variety of those security services to assist there, as well as a fully built out team with 24 hours eyes on glass and things like that to give you thorough and reliable security services. Now, once all of your implementations are in place, your controls are fulfilled, you're going to need to get ready for audit. So audit preparation paperwork is required for that. And you have to submit it. The auditor, C3PAO, reviews your paperwork, says, yes, it looks like you are ready and prepared for audit. That's when they get you on their calendar. Preparation of that paperwork, with our assistance, our services, we can manage all of that and get you on the calendar with the C3PAO. That formal audit takes about a week, 3 to 5 days typically. Now, if you do this in house, go at it alone, there is often times that people will see remediations necessary that come back through the audit. So you get pushed back to the line. It sets you back a bit, right? If you have someone like us guiding you through the compliance process, we will have that all identified before getting to audit. So you won't have any remediations come up. You'll know what you're getting as you go into audit. You know what to expect. Now, when you're certified, the certification will be processed, takes 4 to 6 weeks. I do want to call out too, that time up to getting the audit done, that's going to change, just like Cliff said. It's essentially, a lot of people being funneled through few numbers of C3PAOs. So that's why there can be that extensive wait. Once it is completed, it'll be processed in 4 to 6 weeks. And then all you have to keep in mind from there are those annual self-assessments and the continual third-party audit every 3 years. Anything you want to say on that part, Cliff?
Nope. I think you hit that really well. Appreciate it.
Sure. So here's some detail on our services and how they're executed. I'll let you take this one away, Cliff.
Sure. So, security and compliance aren't the same thing. There's overlap, and of course, compliance drives security, but you can be compliant and not secure, and you can also be secure and not compliant. So at MAD Security, what we strive is to be both secure and compliant, to provide you a methodology that makes sense for your business and protects your business and be compliant with CMMC standards. And so what we like to look at is a defense in depth strategy, and we're kind of a one-stop shop as far as this defense in depth strategy goes. As far as, I look at it like if you're looking at something like ransomware, you have anti-phishing that will stop the email from hopefully getting to the inboxes. then if they do get to the inbox, then there's the user awareness training. The users know not to click. And there are several controls in NIST 800 171 around user awareness training and anti-spam. But if the user does click, then you should have some type of endpoint detection and response that then isolates that action so that it doesn't spread into your system. So we offer endpoint detection and response services. Then we also have the SOC service after that, where if something does pop, if ransomware is uncovered, then our SOC folks will see that. We have the 24/7 eyes on glass SOC. We're not just some folks are 24/7 in name only. We actually have personnel in our office, in our brick and mortar SOC, looking at the screen and watching for alerts to hit. And so the SOC would then take the alert and then act on it based upon the custom playbook we have. And either there would be an incident response of some sort to try to restore and recover your systems and your data, or we would just make a note of it if it was blocked and implement tighter controls for you, or help you with implementing tighter controls from there. And in the meantime, we have vulnerability scanning for anything that may have gotten through and is sitting in your environment dormant or unpatched or unupdated systems. And then, of course, you have governance and compliance, which kind of guides everything. And kind of going back a little bit to the next slide too, one of the key things is setting up your strategy. And if you build your house on a strong foundation, you're good to go. If you build it on a bad foundation, you're going to rebuild your house. So we recommend that you engage an expert early in the process, because there are good ways of implementing CMMC, and there are very costly and wasteful ways of implementing a CMMC strategy. So what we can do is you can talk to one of our experts, and we'll guide you towards what the best strategy is. We don't have a prescriptive one way of delivering your CMMC compliance and security, because we want to meet you where you are and offer multiple options that might be more appropriate to your company's business and your risk posture. And what we find in some cases is that your CUI enclave is a little different, and it meets these standards, but what about the rest of your enterprise? So we have ways where we can help cover both your enterprise and to the appropriate level, as well as hit your CUI enclave to the level that needs to be compliant with CMMC.
Yes, very extensive. All right, so this really wraps up our town hall. After the town hall, we will email out a recording of it, and we will include this in these giveaways. So essentially, it's a CMMC compliance checklist. It's a good way of knowing where you're at, how far along you are towards your remediation plans, whatever plans you have in place. We will also give a link to that compliance or to our resource page. So it has a lot of information there. Essentially, everything you may be looking for when it comes to CMMC compliance, we've got it there for you, including some pre-assessment forms where you can go through those control items, get a bit more information about where you stand. And there will be another link too for the DoD final ruling notice, so you can review that yourself if you'd like. And then here's our contact information, both me and Cliff. Would be happy to help with any additional questions, set up any meetings to understand your business, your environment better, your situation, and how we can help. So that'll be it. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate y'all being here. Cliff, thank you so much for joining me.
It's an honor.
All right. We hope y'all have a good rest of your day.